There are reports that you're using FBI resources to investigate journalists for reporting what's going on, and that is absolutely not what this committee intended when we funded the...
Many hearings in Washington devolve into long, messy arguments as the political sides try to tear each other apart. But on Tuesday, May 12, 2026, sitting on the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Patty Murray stood out on the entire stage by focusing on a single question. FBI Director Kash Patel was seated at the table, prepared. He had a paper full of statistics in his hand. This document, titled FBI 2025 and 2026 under the Trump administration, was filled with record arrest numbers, unprecedented drug seizure figures, and historic successes. Patel held the paper in front of him like a shield. Whenever a question arose, he would rattle off the numbers. Whenever any criticism came, she would say, "The mission has never been stronger." Murray saw this game, and he asked the only question that a paper shield won't help with. Your job is to be accessible. So, are you accessible? This was not an abstract question about leadership philosophy. It was a concrete question demanding an account of where Patel had been in recent months, what he had been doing, and with what resources. And the answer corners both Patel and the institution he represents at the same time. Setting the scene, the mission has never been stronger. Every effective interrogation begins with understanding the other side's defense line. That's exactly what Murray did. Patel took a defensive stance in court and said, "If people want to continue their baseless, fake personal attacks against me, great. Keep the target on me. But the mission had never been this strong." This line of defense was the essence of the framework Patel had designed before the trial. The issue is framed as follows. Personal criticisms are politically motivated, but the institution's performance is beyond question. Therefore, every question directed at the individual can be turned into an attack on the institution. When I defend, I am actually defending 36,000 FBI agents. This is a deft but transparent framing. And Murray shattered that with a single move. Murray said, "I appreciate the work of our FBI agents, but I have serious concerns about leadership, real serious leadership. We see the pictures of you handing out branded bourbon. We see the images from the Olympics. We see you constantly traveling the world, and all of that is a serious concern for me," he said, directing his criticism at the management style. Be careful. Murray hadn't asked his main question at this point yet. He was just laying the chain of evidence. Bourbon bottles, Olympic celebrations, world tour travels. And then came the moment when this chain of evidence was tied together in a single sentence. Your job is to be accessible. The weight of the only problem. Murray turned to Patel and said, "This institution needs someone focused on solving criminal cases, not handing out branded bourbon, not to travel the world. Your duty is to be accessible." This sentence expresses what seems to be a simple expectation of leadership, but it contains three separate accusations. First, you are not reachable. The FBI director not answering the phone, not attending meetings, and being unavailable in emergencies directly affects the functioning of the institution. This is not an abstract expectation, but an operational necessity. Secondly, there was criticism regarding the misuse of resources. The issue of bourbon bottles being transported on an official government plane, or an FBI director being seen drinking beer in an Olympic locker room, raised serious questions not only about personal preferences, but also about how taxpayer-funded resources were being used. The third was the claim of misplaced priorities. The primary duties of an FBI director were to oversee daily cases, respond to the needs of field agents, and set the strategic direction of the agency. And for many, the intertwining of this role with podcasting or sports celebrations was at odds with the seriousness of the institution. Patel's trip to Italy, official duty or hobby vacation? The focus of Murray's question was Patel's trip to the Milan Winter Olympics in February 2026. And every detail of this trip explains why the question, "Can you be reached?" is so sharp. Patel defended his trip to Italy during the hearing, saying he went there to coordinate the extradition of a senior cybercriminal from China and to ensure Olympic security. An FBI spokesman confirmed in February that the trip was pre-planned. This defense seems reasonable on paper. The FBI has a role in Olympic security. Cybercrime extraditions are a legitimate FBI mission. But then came the camera footage. Images of Patel drinking beer in the locker room and celebrating with the team immediately after the U.S. men's hockey team won the gold medal were published by multiple news organizations. The FBI had previously argued that the trip was official travel, but critics now had bigger questions about these images. Former FBI agent and Yale University academic Asha Rangappa assessed these images. There is a rule that dates back to the Hoover era and still holds true. Never embarrass the Bureau. This was the guiding principle when interacting with anyone in public. Never embarrass the office. How does Patel's locker room image align with this principle? And more importantly, how far did this trip take the FBI director away from Washington, from his desk, from daily operational oversight? Branded bourbon, a small detail, a big question. The second link in the chain Murray established was about Patel's FBI logo, Woodford Reserve bourbon bottles. According to The Atlantic, Patel was distributing personalized FBI logo Woodford Reserve bourbon bottles to Bureau personnel and civilians during official duties. The Atlantic also reported that Patel transported these bourbons on a Justice Department plane during a trip to Milan and left a bottle in the locker room. This detail may seem small on its own, but it is extremely important within the context. The FBI is an institution with strict corporate standards regarding alcohol consumption. Alcohol consumption is prohibited while on duty, and the fact that the FBI director not only ignored this, but also distributed personalized liquor bottles bearing the agency's name and logo is an extremely striking inconsistency in terms of corporate culture. Moreover, another striking detail emerged during the trial. It was alleged that when one of the personalized bourbon bottles went missing, Patel threatened to subject the FBI staff to lie detector tests. Think about it. The FBI director is transporting bottles of liquor for non-official purposes on a government plane. When a bottle goes missing, he threatens his employees with a lie detector test. This picture reveals how far corporate priorities have gone off track. 2,000 agents were reassigned. Where's the real cost? Murray's inquiry went beyond personal behavior criticisms. The main issue was where the FBI's institutional resources were being directed. Murray alleged that the administration diverted highly trained federal agents from violent crime, terrorism, and drug trafficking investigations to support Trump's deportation agenda. According to the figures he provided, more than 2,000 FBI agents and thousands of personnel from the DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshal Service were diverted to immigration enforcement operations. This figure was perhaps the most concrete point of criticism in the hearing. The FBI's resources are limited. When every agent is assigned to a case, another case is put on hold. And the shifting of 2,000 agents to immigration operations raises the question of what is being left behind. Murray framed the question this way: are violent crimes not being investigated? Are drug cartels being overlooked? Cybercrime cases being delayed? And where is the FBI director while these resource decisions are being made? Is he celebrating with a hockey team in Italy? The question stood out as an inquiry that directly shifted the focus of criticism to operational priorities and the presence of leadership. The investigation of journalists, crossing a line. Another critical issue that came up during the hearing was how the FBI treated journalists who reported critically about it. Murray also questioned Patel about his attitude toward journalists. Allegations have emerged that Patel directed law enforcement officers to investigate journalists who reported critically about her. This situation has raised new questions about the limits of press freedom and federal power. This issue has raised a much deeper question than bourbon bottles or Olympic celebrations. If the FBI director is investigating journalists who report on the agency, it is a use of power that directly restricts a free press. And it is impossible to justify this use of power within the framework of mission focus. Patel's defense strategy at the hearing was summarized as follows: trying to preempt accountability questions by highlighting corporate success statistics. But critics pointed to the denials, not the statistics. Refusing to acknowledge the reliability of the reports. Refusing to confirm whether lying to Congress is a crime. Refusing to identify who was fired. These three refusals seem to be lost in the flood of statistics. Murray, however, did not let that happen. Back to podcasting, the sharpest closing of the trial. Murray's closing statement quickly went viral on social media after the trial. And the reason it spread so widely was that it was neither angry nor aggressive. He was simply stating an extremely clear fact.
Murray said, "This institution needs serious leadership that the American people can trust. If the FBI director wants to hand out bourbon or pop bottles in the locker room, he should go back to podcasting. Let him leave the legal order to those who truly care about justice. Let those who truly care about justice take over the legal system. Go back to podcasting." This sentence was a deliberate reference to Patel's past. Patel was a political commentator before becoming the FBI director. He was appearing in the media as a supporter of Trump. And what Murray was implying was this: the difference between a director and a commentator is not speaking for the cameras, but being accessible in the office, following up on criminal cases, maintaining corporate standards in every action representing the institution. According to these criteria, Patel's performance presents a clear picture, according to Murray. And the reason this picture spread so quickly in the public eye was that it articulated a truth that everyone sensed, but no one had stated with such clarity. Patel's defense and the lingering question mark. Patel maintained his defensive position throughout the trial. He resorted to statistics. He used the rhetoric of personal attack, and he reiterated his official reasons for the trip to Italy. Patel said, "If people want to continue their baseless, fake personal attacks against me, great, keep the target on me. But the mission had never been this good." This sentence is the basic defense pattern Patel used throughout the trial. The mission is strong, therefore personal criticisms are insignificant. But Murray's question hit right at the weak point of that logic. If the mission is strong, why isn't the director here? Why can't we reach the director? Why is the government plane traveling with bottles of bourbon? The most analytical assessment of the hearing was as follows. Patel's prepared opening was framed not as a budget defense, but as a pre-prepared response to a corruption hearing. By listing 15 or more numerical success claims before any questions were asked, he constructed an implicit logic. The numbers are this good. Therefore, any question about my conduct is either politically motivated or irrelevant. But this strategy failed in the face of Murray's one question. Because the question of, "Are you reachable?" is not a question that can be answered with statistics. It questions whether a manager is physically and mentally present, and responding to that with record arrest numbers does not address the essence of the question. Because the question, "Can you be reached?" is not one that can be answered with statistics. This question inquires whether a director is physically and mentally present, and responding to it with record arrest numbers does not address the essence of the question. Conclusion: the weight of a single issue. The picture that emerges from this hearing can be read on two separate levels. On the surface level, an FBI director was criticized during a Senate hearing for his leadership style and resource usage. The criticisms were based on concrete evidence: bourbon bottles on the official plane, Olympic locker room celebrations, journalist investigations, field agents being shifted to immigration operations. Deeper down, the real issue is this: is the director of America's most powerful domestic intelligence agency truly subject to accountability standards, and is questioning these standards a political attack or an effort to preserve the agency's core mission? Murray summarized the hearing as follows. This institution needs serious leadership that the American people can trust, focused on solving criminal cases. Someone to keep the lights on. To someone who will keep the lights on. Someone who will keep the lights on.
This metaphor carries the weight of a single issue. The FBI director must be the person who ensures the institution continues to function even in its darkest moments. Not in the locker rooms, but at the desk. Not in podcast studios, but in the meeting room. And this is not a political expectation. This is the definition of the duty. If you want to follow these analyses, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you at the next hearing.